All right, well, let's get the show going. I can't see timestamp on this, so we'll have to
Hold.
take a... What?
We lost Karl.
Karl! No! Karl's been silenced by the patriarchy! Oh, he's been dropped from TeamSpeak!
No, it's the application closed down.
Oh.
I don't think he realizes it.
Yeah, he does.
Okay,
There he is.
I got him.
I was closing applications and I can't close that.
Oh, I gotcha. It happens.
It wouldn't be an episode of On Tap if someone wasn't silenced. So yes. Welcome, Karl.
It's quite true.
That means that you're fully, part of RivalCast now, since you've been silenced by the patriarchy on our show. We'll explain that to you later.
Official on all accounts.
Alright, so let's get the show officially started. Good evening, plebeians! We are talking to you in the future because we are broadcasting from the past. By the time you watch this video, it should be August 7th, 2015, or thereabouts. And you are, of course, listening to RCM On Tap, your 60-ish minute roundtable show, where we bring together the minds that... Oh my god, Hacks, really? In the middle of my intro, now he's gonna... Oh, okay, let's start.
Just go with it.
This is how we do it every week, guys. I don't see why pre-recorded things should be any different.
We'll do it live.
Anyway, joining us this week, one of the newest staff members here at RivalCast Media. Please welcome Karl.
Hello. Yeah. Yes. Hello, everybody. Yes. Thank you for having me on and coming on at this extra early time so I can be on. Because usually when you guys record, it's like midnight my time. So.
Or later.
Yeah, later even.
Yeah. Well, put it this way, I start work at 4 a.m. and it was in the middle of your show last time when I was in the chat room, so...
Indeed.
Alright, so, we actually have, usually what we do is we just kind of have some basic questions that we'd like to ask people the first time that they're ever on the show. So, the first thing that we always ask when somebody's new to the show, tell us about your gamer tag. How did you get it? Because you tend to go by Valdora, if I remember correctly.
Yes. This was basically... the 666 part is from when I was an immature teenager, and I wore black a lot.
Yes!
But... I signed up for it when I was, 16 and, thinking that was cool. But the Valdora part is simply just, it was a name on a forum that I had once that was like I guess it was supposed to be like a vampire name, kind of stuff I was into at the time. And it just kind of stuck. Same as Scyther. It's the same sort of thing where Scyther is, I guess it comes from the Pokemon, I'm not quite sure. But me and my friend just decided on that name for a production company a long time ago and it just kind of stuck. And people are like, where the hell did you get Scyther from? Where Valdora? I don't know. It just stuck at this point, and I just call it because that's the name that comes up when I brand things. I don't know.
Well, and then once you start getting into things, and Scyther Podcast has grown obviously since the time that you started it. You kind of have the we refer to it as the Goo Goo Dolls effect, where you just kind of pick a name early on, and then you don't expect it to get as big as it is, and by the time it does, and you're like, maybe we should have had a different name. You can't really go back on it. That's why I will always be stuck as the Baroness. It's just, it was a 5-second, I need you to do this real quick. Also, you can't use your actual gamer tag because it's too close to your own name, and then, now I have a fan base and throughout Europe. It's kind of interesting.
Stop making Ginzilla try to happen. It's not going to happen.
I tried so hard to, when we started, right before we started On Tap in February, I tried to kind of this is probably going to go on for a while, so if I'm going to make the change, I better do it now, and then Bio's the only one who kind of supported me in that.
Yeah.
And Hacks.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times where I originally, I have a wrestling podcast that at one point was called Slam of the Week, then it was called The Dark Side, then it was called Beyond the Mat, and it kept changing, but I gradually just okay, no, now it's this name, I'm keeping it as this name, and the Scyther thing, simply, yes, it probably was after the Pokemon, but now I've got a cool S logo and everything, so I'm not changing it, so.
It is a pretty cool logo, I was admiring it.
It looks like the Seamus, not Seamus, Samus even. Seamus? That's a completely different person.
So this is a good segue, though. So, you said you started Scyther Podcast with your friend, back when you were teenagers. So what made you interested in podcasting to begin with?
Listening to podcasts and going, I could do that. And I found out when I first started, no, I couldn't. Because when I first started, I listened back to that original show and I'm just like, hello and welcome to this show. And, you're very monotone. But as it goes on, you start imitating your favourite podcasters. And I think also that came with a louder voice and a more kind of, like, when I do, like, talk show once now, I open with that, hello, everybody. You start imitating radio DJs, stuff like that. And I gradually just got what was my radio voice, which friends who knew me before I do these now say that I talk like that all the time. They'll ask me a question about film and I'll go into like a 10-minute essay on the film, like I'm doing a podcast or something. But it's definitely a case of evolving, and definitely this audio drama part of it only came about a year ago, and the branding was simply because Scyther Podcast had what I'd call my old podcasts that were kind of talk show ones. Then there was my films that I did under the same sort of banner at Scyther Productions. So I was like, Scyther Audio Productions. There we go. It's all under one banner, which I'll make a website for at some point.
Very cool. Very cool. So you just mentioned, the actual audio drama thing is pretty new, and for those of you who haven't heard them yet, you can see or listen to the current one, The Long Halloween, on our page at RivalCastMedia.com. It's actually a really, really fantastically done run. I'm actually an episode behind right now, but I have been keeping up with it. And you guys have been
that's fine. We're on a delay right now. Because the problem with working with professional actors is occasionally they'll get like real work. And it's a case of, look, I'm busy doing this, can you wait? And then obviously I've got to wait, because the guy who plays Harvey Dent is the one who keeps getting hung up on stuff, and obviously I can't do Long Halloween without him. So, it's just a case of waiting for him sometimes. And obviously also X-Men is up there as well, or the many, many episodes of that we've done. It's an ongoing series. Long Halloween was a case of, let's adapt something and do a kind of literal adaptation, which has been fun, kind of in the graphic audio kind of vein. But X-Men is much more of kind of my own version of the stories kind of thing.
Very neat. Very neat. So, I guess we're going to hold off on this one for a little bit, but since, you have, Batman's obviously DC, you're doing more of a literal adaptation with that, whereas with the X-Men, you're kind of, building off of your own story ideas. Killer's question for you, the one that we tend to get not on air because, people get very, very passionate about their choices here, but in your personal opinion, which do you prefer better, the DC stories or the Marvel stories?
Oh, and you have put him on the spot. Hashtag blame Killer. Trending.
Sorry, Karl.
I'd say when I was a kid, I was a Batman kid, and to a lesser extent Superman. So they were and then I got into X-Men through the 90s cartoon, as I'm sure a lot of people did. And then obviously as I, late teenage years, that's when I started, reading the comics and stuff. I'd say X-Men is my current favourite, just because there's so much more to inhabit in the world, so many more characters. But Batman is kind of my childhood one that I always go back to. And the great thing about comics especially, but definitely Batman, is you can go from being a toddler and enjoying the Adam West show to growing up in the 90s with the animated series, to then graduate into the movies. Then the movies keep getting more and more mature. As you get older, you can get more and more mature as you go on. You can have Batman that's basically like just this guy punching people in the face and, dressed up as a bat. It's as simple as you want it to be. Or you can go as far as Long Halloween, Killing Joke, and the newer movies where it's, this dark vigilante. And it's kind of, it plays to your inner 8-year-old where you see these people in these amazing costumes. But unlike something like, Power Rangers or something that when you go back to, it's like, oh my god, how did I ever wow, okay. Like, the uniforms still look cool even though they're spandex, but, wow, that dialogue and that story, whereas with Batman you grow up and see new things in it and realise, wow, this is properly adult and properly, you can get into that side of it. And then obviously the fact that I in my later teenage years, I was a super goth. Helped with that, because Batman is definitely in that vein as well, so...
It's kind of interesting, the progression you mentioned with Batman in particular, because I followed sort of a similar progression. I started off with the Adam West series, and one of my favorite things still today is, I don't usually participate or interact with, like, internet chat people that I don't know on forums and things, just because, why bother? But the interesting thing is always, when you find a thread where they're arguing about Batman, and you just pop in, oh yes, Adam West was the greatest Batman ever, and then just leave it and watch them explode. But he's
Be
still
sure
my
to buckle your
favorite,
bat
though.
belt. That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Basically, that show is a lot of people's gateway into the character, and introduces you to the world. And even though it's a comedy show, when you were a kid, you took it deadly seriously. But again, once you're an adult, then you can get into the more adult, serious Dark Batman, and you can get into that version of the character, and every version's valid. And it's kind of the same thing for my Marvel DC answer. In the case of, I've become more and more of a comic fan over recent years, just because this is like the golden age of being a geek, and being into all these sort of things. Like today I went and saw Ant-Man, but, next year, my two things are Batman and X-Men, and then to a lesser extent the rest of the universes. But next year, Jesus Christ, as a Batman and X-Men fan, and then to a later degree the other universes, it is bizarre how many amazing things we're getting next year. And I'm willing to see different interpretations of characters, but just seeing, just seeing all these things come out that are like, wow, next year I'm getting X-Men, like 3 of them. I'm getting Batman versus Superman. I'm getting Suicide Squad. I'm getting Civil War. It's like, Christ almighty. And then bookended by 2 Star Wars films.
Right. It's just like,
Can your
what's
nipples
going
get
on?
any hotter?
Yeah, like if you had told, child me that this world is coming, where all these movies coming out, I mean, I'm sure some people are basically going to get to the point where they're fatigued by all these. It's getting like we're living in a post-Avengers world where everybody wants to have a universe. But at the same time, I love all these characters, and while I may have started as a Batman and X-Men guy, I'm learning about the Marvel stuff, so I can enjoy that as well. Learning about the DC universe, and the Bruce Timm animated show, definitely the Justice League show is kind of your school on the DC universe. And then just listening to podcasts and things. And I enjoy other people's enthusiasm and learning from people, and then going and check it out myself based off their recommendations and stuff. So, yeah, it's the last couple of years, because the thing is, over here, and now I'm going off on a massive tangent. Yeah, but over here, comics aren't huge. Like, I know they're not really huge over there anymore because of the direct market and all that. But just basically reading comic books was just not a thing that you do as a kid over here. So I got into the characters through other media, and then the comics I check out just because I want deeper stories, or in the X-Men's case, a lot of stories. Yeah.
That was a very
kinda
long
varies.
answer for versus DC versus Marvel.
It kind of varies.
I know, it's a complicated issue.
Oh, and once you're passionate about something, once you start to get into it, I fully expected it to kind of go on like that. Cause...
Absolutely, and let me also say this, for the movie people, stop hating on the DC stuff, okay? Alright, listen, just because they're not joking every 5 minutes doesn't mean it's bad. We can have an alternative version of it, where the DC movies can be more serious, the Marvel movies can be more jokey, but they can both still be good.
Exactly. Unless it's, well, I don't know if you've ever watched Ghost in the Podcast, but in reference to the upcoming Batman versus Superman movie, my husband, the host of Ghost in the Podcast, Baron von Gosu, has some very strong feelings about their choice as the male lead for Batman. So, since we're on the topic, what are your thoughts? How do you think Ben Affleck is going to do as Batman for this new film?
I think he looks awesome. When he was first cast, it was wow, Ben Affleck? And then you started hearing basically, okay, this isn't the same Ben Affleck from 10 years ago. This isn't the Jersey Girl Ben Affleck. This isn't the Daredevil Ben Affleck. He has become a great filmmaker and a great actor since then in Argo and The Town and things like that. And he has grown as a person. And then you see him in that costume and see him in that role. He looks more like Bruce Wayne than any actor we've ever had that played him. We've never had comic book Batman before. The first time we're getting a bulked up Bruce Wayne looking just like he does in the comics, and the first time we're getting the comic book backsuit, like the grey, and it literally, that looks like he walked off a page of Jim Lee or The Dark Knight Returns. Like, he looks literally like the comic book Batman, and he looks awesome. And I think the new trailer has kind of silenced a lot of that, because people are saying, oh shit, he is doing good. Now, we still haven't heard his Batman voice. And but so long, let's be honest, Christian Bale was an incredible Bruce Wayne, but everybody didn't want to admit that his Batman voice...
I don't know what you're talking about.
No.
Where is he, Karl? Where is he?
It was when you got to Dark Knight Rises. Like, the first one, he just did that voice when he had the guy upside down, right? Like, where's the drugs? But then in the next one, he started, in like Dark Knight, he started like doing monologues in the voice. He was like, I'm not the one that the city needs. I'm the one that it needs right now. And then you get to Dark Knight Rises when you've got Bane as well. And it gets unbelievably funny, like, incomprehensible dialogue. But yeah, look, as I say, I am loving the look at Bat. The only thing I've been on board with this movie pretty much, other than some of the weird casting choices. Because I like Man of Steel more than other people did. Didn't love it, but I liked it more. And then just the fact that this is Batman vs Superman, for crying out loud. We're getting these two characters on screen together, and it looks like the entire movie is basically a reaction to the last movie. It looks like they're like, okay, you want to moan about us killing civilians? We'll make an entire movie about Batman being pissed off about them killing their civilians. So they're addressing that. They're making Superman more heroic, and Batman looks fantastic. I think Ben Affleck's a great choice. The only one that I'm a bit is Jesse Eisenberg.
He had a bit of a gaffe recently at Comic-Con, which I feel bad for the guy, because he's rather introverted, I hear. So.
And when he said it was like genocide?
Yeah. I mean, I saw what he was trying to say after the fact, but it was just like, oh man, maybe you need to like get with the PR person to kind of help you a little bit.
He was basically saying, everybody's screaming at me.
It was so genocide.
Yeah. That's what he's saying, but he came out like, my God, the experience is like a genocide. It's like, people already hate you. You're not helping yourself.
No, you're not helping.
But yeah, I mean, the characterization for Lex Luthor is perfect. The lines are perfect. It's just like, I've got to get used to this kind of social network version of the character. Right. Like I was expecting them to go with much more of kind of the Clancy Brown animated series version, which we've never really seen on screen before. Like basically Kevin Spacey's look, but with the characterization of this new one, is kind of what I was expecting. But I'll get on board with it. I'm sure he's going to lose that terrible wig at one point and stuff, and it's just when you watch that trailer, it's like, oh my God, Batman looks like he was ripped from the comics. These Wonder Woman, Superman, they all look incredible. And then you get Jesse Eisenberg in a bad wig, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But still better than Apocalypse. Have we all seen the images of Apocalypse from the new movie?
No, I haven't seen anything.
They've released images from X-Men Apocalypse. Psylocke is literally in her comic book costume, which is like, this is the series that started out with, you want us to wear yellow spandex? And now they're literally, like, she's in the purple onesie, with the psi knife and everything. Everybody looks incredible, Magneto looks incredible, but Apocalypse looks like Ivan Ooze. Like, he hasn't got the lip thing, and I know it'll grow on me, but his skin's purple, whereas I want it to be grey, and the lip thing isn't there. It'll get there, but he just doesn't look quite... He looks like Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin, almost.
Oh, God.
I'll find a picture, so you can see what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm looking up that right now.
I just feel bad, because I can't pull things up on the desktop, and then if I turn to the laptop, then I get distracted, so... I will wait until after we're done with the show. However, 4, 3, 2.
What?
Hello?
Yeah, we're still here.
Yep. But why are you counting down?
Because we had dead air for a second. I was wondering if either one of you were going to.
Oh no, I'm still.
No, you're fine. You're the guest. But I was wondering, because we do have a couple of more questions for you on our list of just you know.
I'll try not to ramble on and fill it all.
No, feel free, because I'll be the heretic here. I'm not a huge comic book person. Growing up, my parents thought it was silly, and I just never had any. So I am interested. Like, I watched a lot of the animated series when they were on. Watched some of the films. I'm not into all of them. Like, I didn't really care for many of the Spider-Man films that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel kind of bad about that franchise because they keep trying to reboot it and do things different. And then,
but now it's with Marvel Studios, so it means it'll go
yeah, well, is it officially, or were they just going to do that one? So they took it back.
No, they've worked out a deal with Marvel where Spider-Man will appear in Civil War next year.
Right,
then,
I knew that
Then
part.
Marvel characters can appear in Spider-Man's movies next year. Like, Marvel and Kevin Feige are involved in the casting and all that kind of stuff. So,
okay, well, that's
and
a little bit more hopeful.
Yeah, so...
Because Sony clearly had no idea. I mean, when the leaked emails came out, they were just like, well, this Spider-Man thing, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah, I generally enjoy movies, especially these kind of movies, when I'm watching them in the cinema.
Okay. Amazing
Spider-Man 2 was the one that I was like, when I was watching it, I was like, oh dear. Like nothing made sense. Yeah, it was quite bad. No, absolutely. I mean, again, comics were a big part of my life when I was young. It was just a case I got into the characters through the media, through movies and cartoons and things. And maybe I picked up the occasional comic or graphic novel, as I guess it would be. But it's once you reach the teenage years and you start realizing, oh, that's where these characters came from that I love in these other things. So I'm not technically a comic book guy, but I am a superhero guy.
Sure, yeah. It was kind of interesting. My cousin actually got last year. I think they released basically a gigantic omnibus of Batman comics, just reprinted from like the original Detective Comics all the way through. And he was reading through those, and it's just like, he could see the evolution of kind of how they changed the character and made it different directions. Because original Batman was not quite the Batman we see.
He had a gun and shot people and killed people and dropped them off cliffs and was like, oh, that's what they deserve. It was, and then of course he became tame and became the Adam West one, and then got darker and darker until Frank Miller.
Now he just broods over power. He's just like, really concerned about. If someone has ultimate power, how can we trust them?
Well, in the comics now, he's Jim Gordon, because Bruce Wayne's dead.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it seems like Marvel and DC right now are trying to outdo each other with how much they can change the status quo on their main characters. Like, Superman's lost his powers, Batman's dead, Wolverine's dead, Spider-Man's passed the mantle on to Miles Morales, in a kind of Batman Beyond way. The thing with DC characters, because they reset the universe so often, it's not hard to catch up. Like, you can give them... You can give them... Like, for Batman, I could just say to you, Year One, Long Halloween, Hush, Killing Joke, and you'll caught up on the character pretty much. Other than a couple of stories and stuff, and No Man's Land. There's like landmark ones that are from the kind of the pre-52, and you'll be set. X-Men is a soap opera. So, that's where it gets more complicated.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, too, and this was kind of a controversial statement that was stated recently by Stan Lee, but he was kind of talking about how everyone's wanting to redo characters, and they're really focusing on, like, gender and ethnicity and all this stuff with the characters and saying, let's change this over, and then, you've got some of the purists like, no, it has to be Peter Parker and all that stuff. And he kind of, he riled up some feathers, but I understood what he was saying from the point of a creator, which is, why aren't we just creating new superheroes altogether instead of just constantly, like you said,
redipping.
You can just, completely just take this one character and saying, well, no, they still do this, they still have these powers, and they still have this same costume with some tweaks, but we're going to change everything else. It's just like, well, just make a new character.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they how many times can you see the same story, and how Batman is always eternally 30, and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, it just comes down to mainstream. It's a case of they can divert from the characters, they can get away from the characters, but then as soon as it comes back to it, it's like, well, you can make Bucky Captain America for a while, you can make Dick Grayson Batman for a while, but it's always going to revert because that's the character that the mainstream know from other media.
It's marketable.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and it's a lot more difficult to start a new character, and when there's so much history to this other one and such a large fan base, to start with a new one may be less desirable, I guess, for a company that's trying to sell big numbers still.
Yeah, and it's a case of a lot of these characters were created in an era where you didn't have other ethnicity characters, or if they were, they were kind of stereotypes. So, yeah, invent new characters, or DC have made a decent effort with kind of elevating Cyborg and making him,
I think...
Yeah,
Cyborg's awesome.
I think Marvel have always been better at that, because I think, especially speaking of X-Men, the women have always been, like, on par with the men, or in Jean's case, or Storm's case, are more powerful than the men. And I think, obviously, Storm is a black woman, so yeah, I think in some ways Marvel is, because I think a lot of DC's characters were created in the 40s, whereas Marvel is more the 60s, where obviously the civil rights movement was already happening and things. So.
Right, which they could say, wasn't it? I know X-Men was really deep into that.
Well, it's
in
entire...
terms of like homosexuality in different alternative cultures, where it was, you've got these people who are freaks, but in this case, because they have powers and they're having to come together, and then you have splits within them, and some people think we should coincide with the humans, the regulars, some think we should take them out because we're the supreme beings now, and it's kind of interesting how they're able to explore some of those things without, flat out doing so, where you can say, well, it's just
it's
people that are different.
It's the Star Trek of comics.
Mm-hmm.
It's
right, exactly. Yeah.
Old Star Trek, I should say.
Yeah.
Not the new Star Wars
Star Trek, yeah.
Don't even get me started on that.
I enjoy them as movies, but they are not.
Yeah, they're great movies, but they're not Star Trek.
And they make absolutely no sense. If you could just beam to another planet, why would you have starships? But they didn't think about that, because they were just like, oh, this is cool.
Well, yeah, because in the new films, they actually broke that even worse when they did the whole beaming onto a ship that's at work. So now it's like, they kind of, with the transporters, they kind of tinker with limitations, and then they
especially the later ones, but definitely just throughout the history, it was always like, okay, we've got this problem, so let's invent this thing that's two science words stuck together and make it sound moderately scientific, and oh look, we found a way out of this problem. And it definitely suffered from that, don't get me wrong. It was a dramatic laziness, especially in the Next Generation era. And Voyager especially was awful for it. But it was still felt more like a real lived-in world where they didn't just do things because it was cool. Which is, I enjoy the new movies, but that's kind of my problem with them. Like, the fact he was promoted from cadet to captain is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, well, and they were just kind of like handing out, and they weren't even ranks per se for part of it. It was just slots, and when you think of real military, there are certain slots you cannot fill until you hit a rank. Mm-hmm. And they were just you're first officer, but you're a third year. You're a third year.
You get a
first
captain.
Officer.
You get a captain.
Yeah, I don't get it wrong. I enjoyed those movies, but there was moments where logic just took me out of them a little bit.
Yeah,
especially since Karl is an Indian name. Look, I haven't got a problem with the fact that he's a different ethnicity, except the fact that Karl is like one of the most Indian. Like, I know he was played by a Latino originally, but just because the timeline was reset doesn't change his ethnicity. Anyway, sorry, we'll get off the Star Trek
now.
I'm not going to stir that one up even more. I kind of want to, but I'm going to play nice. I'm going to play nice.
This feels like it's too easy to get Karl riled up. Just to give him a controversial geek question. Here, talk about this, Karl, and just back away.
let me tell you.
You're going to fit in here so well. I'm very excited about that.
While we're talking controversy, maybe, what do you think about some of the things where people have been, like with the variant cover thing that kind of happened? It was earlier this year, right? With the Batman, or it was the Batgirl variant cover that got pulled.
Oh,
in the end, it was the artist's decision, so I do respect that. It was their decision, but
I didn't
at the
see
same
the problem.
time,
It was not a case. It was just because there was a woman in peril. It wasn't overtly sexual. It wasn't anything like that. It was a reference to the Killing Joke, and that was all. But it wasn't tasteless. I've seen far worse.
Yeah, that was kind of the interesting thing I saw, was that even Moore has kind of course, Moore is notorious for stepping away from projects and like disowning them. especially with the films that have been made of his works. But even he stepped away from the Killing Joke and said, "Okay, I don't think I would have done it the same way at all." And
well, because he now thinks he's above superheroes.
Right.
Which is more the case. And so does the guy who did the art for that. He just does posters now, so.
Right, but it's humorous. People are like, "Oh, well, you wouldn't put Batman in that position." And comic book fans, like, okay, wait, you don't go into nerddom and, like, take a heavy route and just go all over the place and say, well, it's not that, because they know every single fact about every single comic, and they will readily drop the evidence. And they did. They had all these covers where you had Batman tied up in peril, like, writhing in pain, screaming, and all that. And it's just like, no, it's very usual
because
for
it's
superheroes on the cover.
It's controversial, so...
Right, yeah. And I know that had kind of happened with Spider-Man as well, and it's like, no, that's the spider pose. Like, just because,
Oh, it's the same thing as when Avengers 2 came out this year, and Joss Whedon's sexist because Black Widow said that she can't have kids, so that makes her less of a woman. That's no.
Which is funny. It's like, wait, really? You're going to accuse Joss Whedon of all people of that?
Yeah. Why don't you
just
accuse James Cameron while you're at it? You know what I mean? Like,
right? Yeah. It's odd. I feel like a lot of
Michael
people
Bay,
do it too.
now he is a woman's right leader.
I know, look at how he puts Megan Fox in the forefront of everything. I mean, obviously he's just trying to represent.
Explosions. That's what he's trying to
yeah, exactly.
to promote.
Oh god, Bio, really? Did you go there?
Cool.
Yes.
Oh.
There's a scene in Transformers 4 where the guy literally, I don't know why I watched it. I'm glutton for punishment. I didn't pay to see it, okay? But there's a scene where the guy gets out a laminated card about why he can be a paedophile.
Yeah, I've seen that. He's like,
this is why I've only
Michael
watched
Bay put thought into that. It's like, you could have just made the character 18 and it wouldn't have been a problem, but you actually were like, no, we've got to come up with a reason why he could sleep with a 17-year-old.
Yeah, it's there. It's bad. It's there.
See, there's a reason
I almost
want to
just look that scene up on YouTube because I've not watched any of the Transformers.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, it does help that the girl is like 25, really, but...
Well, yeah, that happens a lot too.
Anyway. What are you drinking tonight, Karl? Usually we ask that.
Coffee?
Because I've been up since 3 a.m. and I've got to get up at 4 a.m. tomorrow, so...
Oh.
Hence why the early start.
Understandable.
And Baroness made this big deal to make sure that she had bitters here. Like, I have to save them until Saturday.
I only bought them last night. Actually, I've got, oh, you can't really see it. I've got that tonight.
Oh,
I haven't tapped it yet because, I don't know, I've just been waiting on it.
Yeah, I got that the show's name is like a bar reference. I got that.
Yes.
Yes.
We try to be subtle and clever, but this is RCM.
Well, you could have just called it Drunk Motherfuckers, and...
That, sadly, is how it usually ends up being by the end of our broadcast, but, it is Saturday afternoon, and...
Yeah. We do have it. Well, yeah, for us, mostly.
But no, it's actually been a really fun podcast. We went into it kicking and screaming, most of us, and we ended up having a lot more fun with it than I think we had anticipated at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I like it just because unlike the other shows at the network, this one particular one was specifically designed with the idea of bringing people together. So we went into it with the idea that, okay, Bio and Killer and I were going to be there every week, but every week there was going to be somebody different. Every week we were going to talk about different things. We're going to talk about, the geeky stuff like with you, or the funny stuff, or talk about Bella barking in the background. Bella's actually our 4th chair for a regular thing, but as she can't, keep the headset on her head very well.
Please tell me she's not named after Twilight.
No.
Thank you.
Killer would not have allowed that. It's not his dog, but we can claim it is.
Well, she's there all the time. She
The
loves
question
Bella.
while you were away was whether or not Bella was named after the character from Twilight. Uh-oh. His face is saying maybe it was.
Okay, there's a story, because actually,
Here we go.
the original idea was her name should have been Belle from Belle, Beauty and the Beast.
Yep.
The problem is, when I texted the name idea to my roommates at the time, I had misspelled Belle. And I put it as Bella, which I didn't realize that until much later. I was like, dude, that's not how you spell Bella. Pretty
Happens.
much. So that's why.
Damn you, autocorrect!
No, but believe me, I didn't think that was the case. I just thought it was.
I was hoping it was once your face changed. You're just like, it's just like, no.
No.
Yes.
No, I mean, again, you're right. It's so much fun to just kind of come and chat about whatever the hell you want to. Whereas other shows, if it's got a topic, you feel like you have to stay on topic. And if you go off on one, you're like, oh, god damn it, I'm going to just chuck all this entire episode in the trash now.
You talked at the beginning about, when you first got into podcasting, the kind of, you go back and look at those videos and you kind of cringe because it's like, you've got the robot thing going on and you're trying to, and it was, the other thing was, this was also a learning experience for a lot of us. I mean, Bio, when we went into it, Bio was the only one who actually had podcasting experience. Killer and I were just sort of,
tagging along.
Again, kind of going into it kicking and screaming. Actually, Killer wasn't even asked specific. I was thinking about this morning and kind of laughing about it, but when we you remember this, but when we were actually getting ready to pitch the idea for On Tap, before it became a full thing and we got all the details down, when we first pitched the idea, I had told, because there was another person who was involved with the idea planning too, and they wanted me to kind of run it. I was like, well, if I'm doing this, Killer has to be involved. I mean, I was from the very beginning. I was like, Killer has to do this with me. And
poor Killer. He lost his personal agency.
I was supposed to talk to him about it to see if it was something he wanted to do, but because he's always on TeamSpeak. I mean, when I started going on TeamSpeak last summer, he was one of the first friends I made there. He was always there. And this particular week leading up to when we were going to make the pitch, I don't remember if you weren't in town. I don't remember if you were traveling for business or there was some reason you weren't there. So Thursday night meeting comes along, we're getting ready to do this pitch. This is the first time I've actually talked to Killer in a few days. So I'm in the middle of this pitch, and I was like, it's going to be, me and Bio, and, oh, by the way, Killer, we haven't talked about this, but I kind of slated you in there because I can't imagine a scenario where you wouldn't be involved with this, so you can say no if you want, but...
You're not saying no.
There's a certain pink-haired one that would say that you did this without his consent, and therefore it is not okay.
Yeah, the pink-haired one wasn't
it's a man's consent, it doesn't
yet.
matter.
Oh, that's true, yeah, man's consent doesn't matter,
So, yeah, so this
interesting.
Literally kind of like he found out about it when in the meeting where we pitched it to everybody else and was kind of told, hey, by the way, I fully expect you to be part of this with me. And he ran with it, so we've had fun.
Here I am.
Now, speaking of On Topic, when you're producing an episode of X-Men the Audio Drama, what kind of general steps do you go through when you're starting just one episode?
Well, I mean, obviously the backbone of it is, okay, I'm following the original timeline from the comics, although obviously a lot of it is updating and bringing it, more modern, especially when I was doing the Silver Age. When I was doing the Silver Age Stan Lee stuff especially, it was like, wow, I've really got to completely rewrite this to make it make more, sense and have more verisimilitude. And whereas in the second season, I've done much more kind of literal adaptations. Like the first episode of season 2 was literally me just taking out Giant Size number 1 and Giant Size X-Men number 1 and literally writing it almost word for word, except changing a few things for continuity, or if it was really racist dialogue, because there was some of that in there. Where,
yeah, definitely.
Because there's a Japanese character at one point. One character goes, "Oh my god, it's the Jap!" I was like, "No, that is not going to be true." So there was a bit of that, but I mean, generally most episodes, other than when I'm doing a literal adaptation, which I do with a couple, just because I feel like I can't improve on it any more than it already is, other than a few dialogue tweaks. But when I'm completely updating something or telling my own version of it, I'll say, okay, so I'll have the season planned out. Like, okay, what was happening during this era? What are the big stories that I want to tell during this era to hit all the character points? And then we'll go through the episode listings as I go through, and eventually, sometimes that changes around depending on how long episodes tend to be. Some get split up into 2 parts and things like that. But obviously, I'll take the original story, remind myself of it, reread it, and then I say, okay, can I make this work in our version? And in the latest episodes, the Phoenix stuff, it was a case of, well, in the original stories, the Sentinels capture the X-Men and they just go up into space. And there's a space station there because, shut up. And it's like, well, in the Marvel universe, they already had space travel for like 10 years up to that point. That makes sense. But in my world, where the X-Men are the only, mutants are the only ones, there's no real Marvel in the universe, or the other Marvel characters. It means that I've got to justify that as to why is there a space station all of a sudden with gravity and things that the real world just doesn't have. So my idea was that, okay, the Sentinel battle happens on the ground, and then the Phoenix stuff can still involve aliens, but it'll be like the first time aliens are coming to Earth, and that will be the introduction to the cosmic stuff, but it'll be much more kind of a sci-fi, grounded, more, based more kind of on hard sci-fi than kind of the more space fantasy kind of stuff that the original was. So I'll rewrite it, make it work. Obviously, a big thing as well is that the characters have been retconned so often that eventually you'll end up with a version of the character that you love that isn't in the original stories. Magneto is a huge example of that. Is that original that character that we love of Magneto didn't exist until the 80s, really. Like, he had the cape and he had the thing, and they started to develop him, but the whole, backstory of him and the Holocaust and the friendship with Xavier, none of that was there in the original issues. And one of my things was, especially with the first season, was to go back and make all of the continuity make sense.
Had to be a lot of work alone.
To make it so that in some cases I'm taking some stuff from the movies and taking some stuff from different versions of the characters and making kind of an ultimate version of them where Magneto sounds like Ian McKellen, the actor they are playing in Daniel Earl. He kind of sounds like Ian McKellen. He's got already straight away in the first episode, him and Xavier are friends. That's already there and established. Moira McTaggart's there straight away. All the stuff that you're told was there earlier in prequel stuff is there from the beginning, so it makes sense.
Right.
So I'll write the script, and it'll end up being whatever it is. I'll maybe do a couple of rewrites on it, send it off to the actors. They send me all their lines at varying speeds, depending on what they can do. The X-Men people, especially, the main cast are incredible at turnaround, and some of them are just insanely good actors. Like Omri, who plays Batman and also Cyclops, he is just superb. And Natalie and Rex, and just everybody and all of them, they're amazing. But yeah, they send me their stuff, and I will put it into Adobe Audition and take out the noise cancel, make it so that it's just the voice as much as I can. If it's maybe got some pops and stuff, I'll ask them to redo it because pops and stuff obviously take away from the illusion. And then I'll just the clear audio, and then I'll just edit it. Occasionally the story will get restructured in editing as it does, but I'll generally just edit it to my script with the sound directions and things like that built into the script. And then I'll send it off once I've got the final version edited, which is usually anything from 20 to 40 minutes, usually for an X-Men episode. Batman's a lot shorter, because after the first chapter, Long Halloween, which was about 20 minutes long, after that the chapters get really short, and it's mostly just artwork, so the scripts end up being really short, and the audio version ends up being, 5 minutes in some cases. But X-Men is 40 minutes, 30 minutes. I send it off to Declan, who is my composer, and he will film score it, basically. He'll do an original score to it, and then send it back to me, a week later or whatever. And then I'll put it up on the podcast. In Long Halloween's case, I'll edit it on my YouTube channel. I'll edit it to the original comic panels and make kind of a motion comic out of it. And yeah, put it up and hope that people like it. Because at the end of the day, I'm a fan of these things more than anybody. And if I listen to it and go, oh my god, like if I geek out listening to it, I'm like, I know other X-Men fans will like it. And when I hear the voice, when I'm casting, sometimes like with Angel, I made him British, but that voice works because he's supposed to be like this rich, preppy boy, and it gave him a kind of a distinct voice. But with most cases with the characters, I'm listening for that kind of, the voice that you hear in your head when you're reading the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Long Halloween, a lot of that was like, other versions, like Omni is very much doing kind of a Kevin Conroy, and the guy I had doing the Joker is very much doing a Mark Hamill, and things like that. But with X-Men, there's been so many versions that, just things like Storm having an African accent. The movies have never done that, but she had it in the first one and then suddenly lost it. But she's supposed to have an African accent, or Peter is supposed to be Russian. But it's just getting that voice that when you hear it go, that is the character, and then just making the best of everybody's takes and the multiple takes they send me, and just assembling it into a finished thing, really. And the reason I did audio stuff is because if I did it as a fan film, which was my original take, was to do it as a video thing, it's limited by budget, it's limited by logistics. An audio thing, the only limit is what I can create in your mind with sound effects.
Definitely.
So long as that works, I can have Magneto make a metal palace for himself on the island of Genosha, which I could never have done, if it was a video thing.
That's one of the things that, here at the creative team at RCM has had a problem with too, is like it was a lot easier because we used to do a lot more skits when we were all audio based, because we're spread out not just over the country, but we have team members in England, we have people in Australia, we have everywhere. So when we decided to make the switch and start doing video streams for the shows, a lot of the things like we did on Ghost of the Podcast in particular, I wrote a lot of scripts for little skits that we did to do, like fake commercials that we would play before the show that were just hysterical because you don't have that video component, but if you write it well and you have the right, atmosphere and the right, composition in the background, you can create so much more just in people's imaginations. It's incredible. And that's one thing that I wish we could get back to a little bit more. We are trying to do what we can with, like, the film clips a little bit, but, like you said, the logistics of having people all over the country, how do you flick it together? So that can be kind of difficult, but...
Right. Well, and on top of that, too, it's a whole new set of software. Like, a lot of the things I've done, at least, is just in Audacity, which I've done what I can with it.
My program is Mixcraft. I adore Mixcraft.
Mixcraft?
That's how I edit, because I edit the sound in Audition, but actually editing the episodes. The reason I like Mixcraft is because it's very tactile. You can cut things up and drag it around, and it's very easy to use.
Yeah, I think I just pulled it up here. I've heard of this. I've not used it before.
It's kind of the Photoshop. It's kind of the Photoshop of audio stuff.
That's what
it's very kind of graphic and easy to use once you know what you're doing.
Interesting. But with the move to video for us as a station, at least, is also new tools. So now you're talking about like Adobe After Effects or Sony Vegas or Sony Movie Studio Platinum and things like that. Which not only is there kind of a cost barrier for some of that, but there's definitely a technical skills barrier where none of us have really tinkered with it before. So.
And a hardware barrier, trust me. My computer is an old piece of crap from 5 years ago, so when I'm rendering videos, I have to turn off 2 of my cores from the rendering process, otherwise my computer will turn off from everything.
I'm just imagining, inside of his computer when it's rendering, like, I'm giving her all she's got, Captain! quick, turn cores 3 and 4 off!
Yeah, I have to set Affinity and unclick a couple of them, because otherwise it'll just overheat and turn off.
We're venting antimatter!
That was the first one I did, was, ironically enough, was the Star Trek one.
Interesting.
Okay.
But I haven't put that up on the site, maybe I'll put it up at some point, but it was the first one that I did. It was kind of the prototype of these ones. I've got a lot of views on it, and a lot of Star Trek fans really enjoy it. It's about the Enterprise B, and kind of filling in that time period.
Okay, yeah.
And sort of like what happened to that ship and it's all about the start of the Cardassian Bajoran occupation and kind of filling in the gap of that time period. And it was where a lot of the cast that I use now came from that. Omri was my captain, and Steve Davis Furball, as you know, he was the helmsman, and Natalie was a Bajoran minister, and then later she was a voter in it when they met the Dominion and things. I was on Deep Space Nine high when I was writing it. It was very Deep Space Nine.
I enjoyed that show.
It's my favourite, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Next Generation is my go-to warm blanket, but DS9 in terms of writing and story and
such powerful stories. Sometimes when it had barely anything to do with actual space, like some of the ones with Jake, in his writing career, it's just like, wow, these are really well written.
And then after season 4, it just became the amazing war show.
Yeah, definitely,
and went to darker places that the rest of the franchise hadn't gone to.
I get chills on the episode still, where Sisko basically had to pull all those strings. And ended up getting people killed.
Yes, in the pale moonlight.
Yeah, and that
when he goes and punches Garrick.
At the very end, where he's having to look and just be like, and the worst thing is, I think I can live with myself for doing this. It's just like, whoa.
Because he killed the Romulan ambassador to get the Romulans into the war.
To finally get them convinced that it was sabotaged. Yeah.
My other favourite from that season was, or maybe it was the next season, was the one where it was basically like the Vietnam War almost.
Yes,
where the guys are getting killed off and Nog loses his leg and stuff.
Yeah, where it's playing I'll Be Seeing You in the montage, or the version for their Call of Sweet characters.
Speaking of Star Trek,
yes!
Nice! I have actually been looking at some of those.
Those are the Diamond Select ones. I've been trying to complete the collection of all the Enterprises. Kind of like the Captain's Ready kind of thing. I've got the original one over there, I just haven't hung it up yet. And I'm just missing the C now. So.
There you go.
The NX is over in a corner somewhere, it almost doesn't count. But...
Oh, it doesn't count.
Yes. No, but some of the writing in that particular series is just so strong, in my opinion at least. Just like, so good.
I think a lot of people put it down because the early 2 seasons had really good episodes, but the first 2 seasons were kind of slow and dull and took time to get going. But by the time you get to season 3 and 4, it just became incredible show. But the same thing for Next Generation. The first 2 seasons of Next Generation are awful.
Oh, yeah.
If you put to Next Generation and they've got those pajama uniforms without the collars, it's probably going to be a bad episode unless it's Measure of a Man or the first one with the Borg.
I'm going to step out there and say that Trek got a lot better when Will Wheaton left.
Trek got a lot better when Gene Roddenberry died.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and that was one of those
Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek was the motion picture and the first 2 seasons of TNG.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It's true.
Yeah.
He got too involved in his own hype. Kind of like George Lucas. He got too invested in his own hype and started thinking what his idealized version was, started believing his own press and thinking that he is the god, that this is how this universe works. It's like, wait, you don't have conflict, but the entire original series was people punching each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's this whole, like, the Federation doesn't have money now because we're in a post-scarcity economy, and yet, they're still dealing with all these races that do still have economies with money, like the Ferengi alone were just...
It started out and they were supposed to be like the new bad guys, and then people would laugh their heads off at them.
Right.
Like, okay, let's make them into these comedy characters, and they became fantastic. But
right.
Yeah, they're basically communists. That's the economy of the Federation.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes. Back on topic, whatever that is.
Was there a topic? I don't think there was a topic this time.
We're
just
talking about the
sitting
general
around
process
the
of
bar.
how X-Men episodes happened.
Yes,
right.
yes.
And then you
I was talking about how I did a Star Trek one, yeah. I think the reason I started with that one was because you have so many recognisable sounds that you can use. Whereas later on, I've had to create my own library of sounds. Like, literally, I have a folder now. It's a folder of metal crunching and bending and kind of that warm sound effect from Magneto. Because I had so many episodes where Magneto's picking things up and ripping things, and you can't keep using the same sound effect. And obviously now I've got the Nightcrawler's bamf, and I've got Wolverine's claws, and all that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah.
So, quick question for you, and this might be kind of difficult to answer, just because, as a creator, you put a lot into everything that you do. But thinking back over the different productions that you've done, whether it's Batman or Star Trek or your X-Men stuff or, all of them, what was the favorite production you put together and what made it special?
It'd either be that first episode of Long Halloween, just because when it came together and it was one of Declan's best scores, and all the performances were on note, and it literally was like the perfect. Every character sounded like that character sounded in my head when I read that book. It'd either be that, or it'd be when either towards the. There's so many episodes of the X-Men one where I listened to it and I was like, oh my god, I could like. When you're thinking of it, I'm like, I want it to sound like this. It's going to be amazing. You write it and you want it to be this. Sometimes the actors will make choices that aren't what you heard in your head, but maybe it'll be better or just different in a different way. But then when you put it together and it is everything you wanted it to be and more, and people are reacting to it the way you wanted it to be, you just occasionally are like, when I got to the start, I'll say the second Genesis episode as well, just because when you got to that and it was like, okay, you loved what we did the first season, now we're bringing in like Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Storm, like all these iconic characters, and each one of them sound perfect and as the character. But if I can't pick one. If I can narrow it down to a scene, my absolute favourite scene I've ever done was, from writing to performance to everything, there was a scene in one of I think it was the last episode that went up, where Wolverine and Nightcrawler are having this conversation in a kitchen, and it's basically to the note perfect, those characters. Nightcrawler's talking about how all this stuff that he's now discovering is affecting his views on religion, and Wolverine's answering with saying, basically he believes that we're already living in hell on Earth because of his worldviews, and it's basically kind of these characters just embodied by these two incredible actors with the voices, and they're doing the characters perfectly. And I think I enjoyed the way that I wrote that scene, and it just, yeah, good fun.
It's hard. It's like trying to pick your favorite child, and it's...
Yeah, I just picked that because it was like the latest episode, so it was the thing that was on my mind. But yeah.
Very cool.
Very much. Now, I'm going to put a quick plug in here. Your composer actually sells the soundtrack on iTunes.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm looking at it here.
How did I not know that? Because...
Here, I'll drop the link here.
I've said to him a couple of times, be careful with selling the main theme, because of course, obviously, it's the Fox theme from the 90s animated show. Because that's the best X-Men theme ever. But yeah, the
oh yeah,
but other than that, yeah, his scores are incredible, and he made a theme for Magneto and a Juggernaut, and just when the characters come on, you know who it is by the music, and awesome. He does such a superb job, and especially on the turnaround. Like, I'll give him an episode. It'll take him a week to do a score, write it, and put it to it.
Wow,
that's impressive. Quick.
Yeah, I mean, on this latest episode, he's gone away on holiday, or on vacation, so he sent me a bunch of library tracks. I'm basically trying to edit them to it, and kind of do kind of a substitute track off some of his old scores and some of his new themes and stuff, and it's a lot harder than you think. I'll definitely be glad when he's back for the next episode.
Right, well, and I believe he's going to be dropping, when he comes back from vacation, because I follow him on Twitter, he's planning to drop the Batman Long Halloween soundtrack as well. So that's coming up on the horizon, which it may be out by the time you people are watching this. So
with his Batman theme, I found myself humming it while I was at work one time, and I was like, that's how I know he got it. When we invented a Batman theme that you can, it's got a theme, but it's not any of the other themes that there's been, but you can tell it's still Batman. You know what I mean?
Right.
Very cool. Well, we're coming up on an hour now. I did have one more question for you, just kind of, because you do kind of have your own core team. You mentioned your composer quite a bit. We've already had Steve on the show. You've mentioned Natalie quite a bit. So how did you, like, the people that you use the most for your podcasts, or your dramas, like, how did you get to meet them like, how did you all come together to
did you just find some voice acting communities? Or?
Casting Call Pro, or the sister site Voices Pro, where the majority of them came from. I put up a thing saying this is a non-profit audio drama. You know, it's just me. You know, it's a non-paid thing, but you know, you'll get to be these awesome characters, and it'll be a good production. And when people applied, I sent them samples of what it's eventually going to sound like. A lot of them came from the Star Trek one, and then I just kind of kept picking up people as we went along. Then some actors I'd pick up would recommend me to their friends, and then they'd come along. And that's happened to quite a few. And then a couple of them came from the Voice Acting Club forum. So yeah, I'll just post up just advertisements, and people who are interested, I'll bring them on board. I'll add them to the Facebook group and just get them involved in the community and make sure they're perfect for every character. You know, I mean, there's been so many ones who. I mean, Omri, I've made this joke every time we've done a behind the scenes talk thing. He's kind of, if I was Tim Burton, he's my Johnny Depp. Like, he's literally, every production I've done, he's been my lead actor. But that's not out of just loyalty, that's also out of just he's perfect. Every character he nails. And it's the same with each of them. You know, I won't give them a part just out of loyalty. Obviously, I'll favour them over somebody else out of loyalty sometimes. But yeah, if they sound perfect for the part, absolutely. And this core group, I cannot be more thankful, because the majority of them, most of them, are working professional actors. Like Omri and Natalie and Sam, who does the narration, and Jason. A lot of them are working professional voice actors who will take time out of their schedule to do this just for the fun of it.
Yeah,
because they enjoy
and
working
that
with
part
it.
within itself is extremely...
Right.
Yeah, I've tried to get some projects going that were more art-based projects where I needed some kind of pro level or getting there, kind of basically manga artists. And it's so hard to find somebody who basically isn't saying, you know, 150 up front just to get the project started. And almost like they've made their own little miniature corporations on DeviantArt kind of thing. Or the people who you can only get them to show up maybe once in a while and they just flake out all the time, produce like half a page, and they just aren't invested in the team kind of thing. So what you've accomplished within itself is huge.
Yeah, I think it helps that voice acting is a thing you can just sit down and do for an hour and then it's done.
Very true.
I think that helps. But also, I think obviously it's the passion. It's the fact that they enjoy,
Definitely.
because of using these franchise characters, they enjoy being these characters, and as they work with me and go along from different project to project, they just enjoy working with me. And I mean, back in January, I went down to London and met a bunch of them, and there's quite a few of them now who have been on a bunch of our projects who I'd consider, you know, friends.
Nice.
So it's a case of now we're working together to make this thing into, hopefully at one point, a job for myself where I can make a living off this stuff. I'm working on an original project that hopefully will come once I've finished Long Halloween. I'll get on to that more seriously, because I can only really do 2 ones at a time. I can't do any more than that.
Right.
So I'm writing it.
Overload.
I'm writing it, I'm editing it, I'm producing it all myself.
Plus your day job and everything else.
Yes, exactly. So
I know how that goes.
Yeah, so I mean, so hopefully that will become sort of the first stepping stone to where I can monetize stuff, and hopefully go somewhere. And as I've said to all of them, you know, if this thing ever makes it, you know, I'm bringing you all up with me, because this thing could not exist without them. You know, I could write scripts to my heart content, but without them and without their incredible acting and without Declan and his scores, this thing is just fanfiction. That would just be on fanfiction.net.
Right.
Well, I think I can speak for all of us when I say that, you know, just from what I've listened to with your podcast, you've certainly gone a little bit above the Terra Gillespie fanfiction level. So
just a little bit.
Just a smidge.
Well, the fact that Batman and Joker are sleeping together helps.
And is, you know, does Batman call people preps?
Yeah.
You're such a prep.
A lot of Batman comics are like fanfiction now. There's an entire comic where we just started beating up on people because they liked punk rock music.
You're such a poser.
That's just nice!
All right. By bio, killer. While we still have our guest, do you guys have any questions for Karl while he's here?
Do you have any projects you're mulling around that you're willing to mention, other than the original one? Like, are you planning on doing any more future adaptations?
The original one is the one I've got kind of on the... I've got a treatment for it and things like that now. Other ones, I mean, these are my... Batman and X-Men are my two jams, but, I mean, people have been sending me script ideas for other Batman ones, to do like an original Batman one. Like, Declan is writing a script for one of his own and that kind of thing, so maybe start doing stuff like that. Obviously, I'd help out with the script. I mean, X-Men is a weird thing in that either at some point I've got to stop, or I'm going to have to start outsourcing it, because the good thing about the early X-Men stuff was it was just one book and one story and one set of characters. Once you start hitting the mid-80s, that's when I'm like, okay, so either I've got to plan this to come to a definitive end at some point, or just stop and do kind of a flash-forward thing. Or do some sort of workaround where I have like an episode dedicated to certain teams, I don't know. Or I'm literally going to have to start saying, okay, I'm going to bring on another writer and another producer and another editor who are going to do a New Mutant series, and they can go off and do that, and I'll just overview it.
And then you'll have to kind of become like what Disney has done for Star Wars now that they've taken over, where you become like the lore department. You make sure that everything is all within canon and works together and doesn't, start clashing. Yeah, that would just be... You hit that point, and it's almost like you just need to approach the people who actually own the properties and say, look, like, this is where it's at. I'm to a point where I think you could make something off of this, and...
Well, I mean, the whole problem with that is that, I mean, one of the reasons that motivated me to do it was, I was like, wow, this would make an incredible, X-Men would make an incredible live-action TV show. And if they kept the action stuff down, they could do it on a budget that's similar to kind of like Smallville or something. They could totally do that. Most of the scenes could take place in the mansion, and I don't know why they don't do it, but it's part of the whole thing with the Fox and Marvel and those falling out over who owns the rights, because if they don't own the film rights, so we're not going to create any more mutant characters or promote your things that you're making money off on the movies. So it's
and I think Marvel is definitely more open-minded towards it, because obviously they've started doing exclusive Netflix shows as well as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC. So yeah, they're definitely... like you said, it's
that's
working.
That's the problem. It's a case of Fox own the characters, and that relationship is extremely bitter.
And Fox is very much... They pull the plug on things when it comes to TV, and then they produce big films that kind of don't do as well.
The Sony-Marvel relationship has always been much more friendly, and I think we can find that out now that they've made a deal. Like, Spider-Man has never kind of disappeared from marketing. The X-Men have been extremely toned down in terms of the way that the Marvel company produces them and pushes them. They've been definitely minimised because they don't own the movie rights, and the majority of the profit of that company now is from the movies, because not many people are reading comics nowadays.
No.
They're trying to replace them with the Inhumans, I think, from what I gather. So.
Now then, but let's end on a more serious question. Starfleet Captain, who's the best? Go.
This has caused so many arguments in TeamSpeak.
I believe Killer is asking to 1v1 Karl on this one. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm just asking his opinion.
1v1, mate.
Picard.
We could be friends now.
Because Kirk is a cowboy who basically beams down and tells everybody, your religion is a lie, you should worship me. And make sure he sleeps with everybody. And, he's a great, lead with his head kind of captain, depending on which head. He's the Han Solo type. He's the cowboy. Yeah. Cisco is very hot-headed, especially when he sounds sweetly like this when he gets angry. Obviously, he just basically abandons his post to become a god, so that's not good. Janeway is an idiot who sacrificed her entire crew to get strand them for people she didn't even know, which she'd call heroic, I'd call dumb.
But it was for science. It was for science, Karl.
Science.
Yeah. And of course, Archer. Well, he didn't get his show through more than 3 seasons, 4 seasons.
Yeah,
so.
he didn't have enough. Yeah, he just didn't convince people.
Plus, he also had that kind of George Bush thing going on, which a lot of you pick up on. He has that kind of, we're going out into space to show people how good we are and how right our way is.
Because we are the new Federation.
Mm-hmm.
The Federation.
They should just hail people with the Team America theme song.
America.
Oh, that'd be incredible.
That is
Be
glorious.
incredible.
That is glorious. All right, well, let's wrap up for tonight. Karl, again, thank you for coming on tap. We've
Yes,
been
Karl,
trying to
thank
get
you.
you
No
on
problem.
for a while,
Thank you.
so it's fantastic that we could finally make our schedules meet.
Mm-hmm.
You can find Karl's podcasts, the audio dramas for the Long Halloween as well as the X-Men things on our RivalCastMedia.com homepage, where you can also find other written content. We've got the fanfics up there. We've got articles throughout the month, so be sure to check that out. By the time this particular broadcast airs, we should be coming up on the next wave of articles for August, so be sure to take a look at that. If you're not following us on social media, you are wrong. Make sure to check us out on Twitter. Our respective Twitter handles are under our pictures here on the podcast, or just follow us directly at RivalCast Media. We're also on Facebook at Facebook.com/RivalCast.
Faceblocks.org.
I try to face block, but
We
it
face
just,
palmed.
it
Yeah,
happens.
facepalm.net.
Oh my God! Is that registered? Bio, check and see if that's registered.
Yeah, I
Because
can't-
I
It'll
have
be,
my
a
own
picture,
website.
it'll be that picture of Picard.
Of course, yeah.
That would be the entire thing and my email address. That's the entire website.
It is taken. It
Damn
just
it.
goes basically to an Apache page where it just says hello.
Well, you know what? Let's track these people down and see if we can buy it, because I want it now.
Or kill them.
Anyway,
One or the other.
until I start my media empire with facepalm.net, check us out at rivalcastmedia.com. Also, be sure we're broadcasting on YouTube for this one, but be sure to check out our live show Friday nights at 9:30 on twitch.tv/rivalcastmedia, where you can also see all of our other shows throughout the week. And from all of us here at RivalCast Media, cheers.